You know, some of my favorite things to do is to learn from history, the good and the bad. So when I heard about the giant bronze Buffalo Bill statue, I had to check it out. You know, Buffalo Bill is a character who was synonymous for killing bison. He killed over 4,000 animals. And that in itself is really crazy to think about. He actually supplied a lot of the meat to the railroads. But the interesting thing about it is later on in life, he actually brought buffalo back to his ranch. And some of the buffalo that we have today are from some of those buffalo that he actually saved. And that's one of the really cool things I think we miss in history. We tend to take and we pull out snippets of things that people did that might have been wrong. You know, it might have been a little excess of him to kill over 4,000 animals, but maybe not. You know, he supplied meat to a lot of people who needed it. But the other thing that I think is really cool is that he actually saved a fair amount of animals. And we actually see a legacy of his today. On another note, there was a big storm that rolled across Kansas and I think parts of Nebraska this last week. And I didn't really realize how devastating it was to some parts of Kansas until I came out here today. I talked to a few people about this, and they said that the wind actually kicked up enough and it generated fires throughout western Kansas. Some of it was from downed power lines, some of it was from the actual storm itself. But they said the fires were so bad that they whipped through some of these ranches and just killed a lot of cattle. I heard some of these farms have had a really hard time. I saw some of the devastation today, and nothing I really want to put on film, but I'll just say that it is not a pretty sight out here. Some parts of the country have been burned. One person told me that there's about 3,500 head of cattle that actually got caught up in those fires and burned. And I saw some of those today. It really is hard to see these people's livelihoods just gone up in smoke, literally. So hopefully things can get better, but keep them in your prayers. So let's go take a look at this museum. Let's learn about our history, the good and the bad. Let's take the bad and let's figure out what we can do to change it. And let's take the good and let's figure out what we can do to emulate that. Let me take you guys inside and show you a little bit of what they have going on here. This bronze statue is just amazing. They've got this guy on horseback here and this massive, massive bison. It's really, really cool. So let's head inside and take a look at some of this. Look at that. The Buffalo guys, Ken Clem. But this is Brooke. She is the administrator here, and she's gonna kind of give us a little bit of a tour. So I'll let her take it away.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Brooke. And so when you first walk in the door, the first thing that you're gonna see is Fred the Buffalo.
So what is this whole place and why does it exist?
We brought in the statue. It's because Buffalo Bill, this is where he got his name. So this is the famous battle 10 miles south that happened. Okay. And so Buffalo Bill was working with the railroad and feeding them buffalo, and then Bill Comstock was feeding the scouts. And so they were both kind of being called Buffalo Bill, but there could only be one. So they had a contest, and it was $500 and the name of Buffalo Bill, the name Buffalo Bill. And so it was 8 hours. And that's his gun Lucretia that he would have been using. Well, it's not the actual gun, but a replica. And so he ended up winning the battle, and halfway through the day he was actually winning by so much that he took the saddle off his horse and was riding bareback and kind of showing off. So that's where we call it the birthplace of the legend, because this is where he earned his name. Okay, so I understand it that he was primarily supplying buffalo meat to the railroads, is that right? At the time he was, but he had also done that for the military. You know, he was obviously in the military, he fought in the Civil War and things like that. So he always had this reputation of being a famous buffalo hunter. That was kind of, okay. But he didn't have the name until he was here, so that's kind of our tie-in with him. This is where 10 miles south where he got his name.
Okay. It always kind of interested me when I drove by here because the first buffalo that I had was actually named Buffalo Bill.
Oh.
So that's kind of what intrigued me a little bit about this.
For sure. And so then building off of that, we have just other historical things. We have Annie up on the wall. She was donated to us. And just a few things hung up. Our old ghost town, Sheridan, over here, which was where the railroad ended. And it was kind of a lawless town. It basically had 3 saloons and not much, there was no law. People pretty much took things into their own hands. Now you can't even tell where the town was. It's just a patch of grass where people were buried. Okay. So that's kind of the end of the railroad, where they ran out of money.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah. And so the guy who actually painted this is down at Keystone Gallery, which is along our historic byway. We're on our historic byway. We're real proud of that. And so he actually painted this mural. And so they're awesome people, fossil hunters.
That's beautiful.
Yes. So.
Very, very cool.
Yes. I mean, we're a nonprofit. And so how we make our money here is through our event center. So we have, people can come and do weddings, meetings. We have a meeting going on today. So we have 3 different rooms that you can rent, and that's kind of what keeps us going. But our main mission is just to just give people the information of the history of the West, and that's really what we're rooted in. Is we want people to know the history, and we're excited about our history here, and we do have things to see. So.
Very cool. Well, there's a huge history behind buffalo or bison in this whole area. This is kind of, bison is the Kansas land mammal, so it's kind of a cool birthplace of it here, and it's a very, very cool setting of the kind of rolling hills.
Yes, it's definitely our biggest target audience. People come in here, and buffalo stuff always is the main seller in the gift shop, and then just seeing, they ask if they're around here, and this is buffalo country. No trees, not hilly, this is just buffalo country. So we have the big herd down there. There's about 400 south of town. Historic Scott Lake. So there's Pueblo ruins down there, some historical markers, and then there is the herd of buffalo that there's about 400, and then they have a separate herd of white buffalo. I believe there's about 12. I could be
really
quite on the numbers, but there's about 12.
And are they true white buffalo?
They're true white buffalo,
really?
not albino.
You guys might have to stay tuned for that.
So how long have you had this taxidermy of this buffalo here?
That's a question for Lori. Lori, how long have we had Fred?
Fred was harvested in eastern Colorado, and it was in 2003. So that's how long we've had him.
You don't see full mounts like that very often.
Yeah, no, and it was donated to us, so it was really great that we got that. Local artist in Leota, Kansas, Charlie Norton, he and his wife Pat started it in 2001.
The sculpture?
The sculpture took 3 years.
Okay.
9,000 pounds, $450,000, all raised locally, and we dedicated it in 2004 in May, and that's where it's been. And it does celebrate the buffalo hunt that is legendary that Brooke told you about.
Well, that was fun. Those guys are great. They gave us a nice tour of the place. It's really kind of cool. There's a little bit of a controversy of the history behind Buffalo Bill and him actually killing a lot of buffalo. But what these guys really do is they're trying to preserve the history of the West. They're just trying to tell the stories, the true stories of how we all got here, the buffalo and how they got to be killed through just survival, through Buffalo Bill, preserve some of the history and the heritage of the West, and just telling the true stories, whether it's good or bad, about what happened in this area. So it's very cool to see some of the history of the buffalo in this area, the history of Buffalo Bill, and how he actually fed a lot of the people in this area by train. Yes, he did kill a lot of buffalo, but he did feed a lot of people too. So that was very cool to hear about. Thanks guys for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.